Hello, and welcome back to another episode of our Credible Business Series. Today, we're here with Aaron from Authority Property Management. Thanks so much for coming on, Aaron.
Glad to.
And what part of California are you in?
Redding, California, the very most northern end of California.
Awesome. Okay. I've never been there, but it looks like a beautiful place to live.
Most definitely. 3 mountain ranges, three lakes, all within about 10 miles of us. So it's a very nice place to live.
Oh my gosh, that sounds gorgeous. I was reading a little bit about your company, and I thought it was funny that you guys started your business on April 1st. So, was that intentional?
It was. We had the opportunity to launch over just about a month and a half period, and we thought that would be a great day to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of folks were like, hey, no, you're not. And now they know we completely weren't laughing, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I also saw that you said it was due to stylistic differences from the previous firm. What did you feel like in the last firm was missing that you guys wanted to do differently?
2 decent business partners.
Okay, got you. Got you.
Yeah, our last company that we were partnered with really wasn't built on the back of being the best property manager you could be or offering the best service or what your clients need. It was kind of designed with one level of service in mind, and that's what we were going to provide to the property owners, which, I'm probably telling you things you already know, but every property owner is different, right? We've got some sweet little ladies who live on the money and every dollar really matters. And
yeah.
I've got other owners who spend, a year and a half on their sailboat. We manage their 80 doors. We don't talk to them ever. They're just not worried about what happens. So every property has to be managed a little bit differently. And I think that's something that really sets us apart, and something that we wanted to provide is, we really want to get to know the property owners, their goals, what they're trying to do, and then help and achieve that, which, as I mentioned, you have to manage every property differently to get that done.
Yeah, I think it's really very common that people only manage one way, and it's kind of their way or the highway. So you're definitely right in my experience. I feel like if you're not able to adjust a little bit for the different kinds of owners that come through your door, then it's really going to limit the kind of owners that you can do a good job for. So that's really cool though, because it's not one size fits all at all.
It'd be a lot easier if it was, that's for sure.
Yeah, but the industry would be a lot easier, 100%. Your vision for doing things differently when you started Authority just mostly had to do with making sure that you were a little bit more customizable to the kind of owner that you were servicing. Was there anything else?
Delivering on the service, in the space that we were in, the previous company I had, we did a pretty good job. But, most property managers, I think, really didn't understand the gravity of what we do, right? We're, 3/4 accounting firm, 1/4 property management as far as managing the property repairs and tenants. And you're managing somebody's portfolio. In some cases, for some of my owners, it's their entire retirement, profile, right? So really need to pay attention to what you're doing and be good at it and really take care of the asset and the tenants and minimize vacancy and get people plugged in. And I think a lot of property managers just reduce the entire level of service that we do down to, we collect the rent and call vendors when something's broken. And there's so much more to it.
Yeah, I feel like you learn really quickly when you try to either do it yourself or hire the wrong manager, how much of our job is extremely important. Oftentimes, I think if you hire the right manager, you don't realize what's involved, because if there's no problems, you may not realize how much they're doing, but it is a lot.
You're definitely not lying. There's times when an owner's like, hey, I think I'm going to take over management. We're like, hey, did we accidentally make it appear like it's too easy and we're not doing anything over here? Because let me send you the logs of what's happened on your property in the last, 6 months, so you know what you'll be taking on. Sometimes they burn back and they're like, wait a minute, never mind.
Yeah, no, 100%. If you're doing a good job, then it can sound like crickets to them, but doing a good job takes so much in the proactive measure side of things, because if you're not, then you're just putting out fires. Yeah, it's incredible the amount of work that goes into preventing problems, honestly, so.
I liken it to something that a mentor once told me, and he said, if you have a good phone company, they never talk to you and you never talk to them. And that's a property manager we want to be, just, where you really aren't getting bad news every time we call. We've all been in that spot, right? Where you call the owner and they're like, oh, you're calling, what do you want?
Oh yeah, at a certain point, you can't separate the news from the person telling you. So you talk about small differences defining your business. What are some that you feel like really matter? I feel like we might have covered that, but is there anything else that you want to add to it?
Sure. I would say, one other thing that's really important to us is how we take care of the residents and tenants. We are the only property management company in our space that has 2 receptionists, which a lot of people, that are in other businesses or other style of businesses ask me why we have 2, and it's really to provide the best experience to the residents. One thing we're very passionate about is that if somebody needs to upgrade or downgrade their home or their apartment, we'd really like them them to stay within our purview, right? So,
Yeah.
and we've actually done a really good job at that. We have a lot of tenants that are like, hey, we're having a baby. We need a third bedroom. We didn't see anything on your list. Let us know as soon as you do, because we're not going to rent from another property manager.
Wow.
And we think that really benefits our owners in a couple different ways. One is, we get the best tenants for that. Two, when we're looking at moving a tenant from one unit to another, for that owner, we know everything about this tenant, right? I mean, every interaction we've had, how they've paid everything. So we're up to a speed 100%, as opposed to if we're taking them on from another firm, we don't know if we're getting true and real answers. Sometimes you can tell when another property manager puffs up a tenant so hard, they're hoping that they'll move into our unit to avoid an unlawful detainer action.
Yeah.
We like to keep our tenants, all the good ones. So we have 2 receptionists up front just to greet the residents, with just about 1,700 residents that we look after. So we dedicate a little bit of our labor to that. I mean, we have a couple people that come in to pay their rent and hang out for a minute, and you can tell we might be their one visit of the month they look forward to.
Aw.
We definitely dig that, providing that level of service.
That's really cool and very rare. I'll say that. It's not something that you hear a lot. And I think that it's something that owners may not realize when they're vetting a management company is so important to not only their bottom line, but also to just the decency of humanity. Because being a tenant is a very vulnerable situation. If you have the wrong landlord or the wrong self-managing, landlord owner, even though there's legal protections in place, if you're having to exercise them, you're in a nightmare, on both sides. And I think that a lot of times owners don't realize what that does to their bottom line when a property management company truly values the relationships with the tenants, as far as limiting vacancy goes, as far as overall, like if you treat the tenant well, they're going to want to treat your property well. There's just so much there that I don't think people realize. And I did the BDM work, or the onboarding and the sales for property management, for a long time. And a lot of owners are just concerned with, how are you going to protect me? And I feel like there was a lot of opportunity there to explain how taking care of a tenant does protect you, and how that's also important.
100% protect the income stream.
Yes, exactly. It's nice to see an owner that protects both sides, or a property management company that values both sides so much. Why do you think those differences led to winning Best of the North state multiple times? I did see that.
I think probably a lot of that is, as we think about it, interacting with the residents and treating them with respect, even though sometimes we have to hold them accountable, producing good results there. They're the folks that get a vote in that system of awards mostly, right? Most of our property owners hire us because they're out of town, so they don't see those contests. They see the awards because we definitely make sure they see the award after. But tenants are always happy to speak really highly of us, and I think it's just honestly because we spend so much time treating them with respect and holding them accountable. When we have to hold them accountable, we make it a point to call them first instead of just delivering a nasty notice.
Yeah.
Those kind of things, and try to remain friendly. I think that's really produced a lot of results for us. As you said, tenants are pretty vulnerable. Sometimes it might be a person that's never rented in their whole life. They've always owned their house. They just lost their home. Now they're a renter. They're in a whole space they don't know or understand, and could use a little extra help. That's not necessarily part of the service offering, and we provide that. So we were just talking about this morning on a Facebook group where, unfortunately, one of our competitors is getting hammered a little bit, and lots of folks are commenting, we don't have that trouble with authority property management. But I also know this property manager and know that they're happy to be harsh or maybe a bully with their tenants. And we just avoid all of that. I mean, they're just people. I'm a tenant. I rent this space behind me, right? From a good friend.
Yeah. I think holding tenants accountable with kindness and like the courtesy of the calls beforehand, and separating the circumstance that they're in from who they are as a person, is something that's very rare in general. And it really does produce better results, because you catch a lot more flies with honey in general. I said, while working in the industry, I said that you don't ever really know where the tenant is coming from. When you find a tenant that innately just hates you for being a property manager, like, what did they go through in order to hate you just because you're a property manager, and how can you prove them wrong? And you can't always, but I feel like it's an important difference to make in the dynamic there.
Something else that we think about is, as long as you're taking care of people and whatever problem you're aiming to cure, it seems like the money follows as far as success goes. So my wife, who's my business partner in the other real estate broker, is always saying, every interaction we have is an opportunity for a review. I believe that to be so true.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And if you're acting like that, you're going to run a good business for sure. Like you said, the money does follow. I think when it's not your number one concern in being a good human is, and it's so nice to hear someone just bring so much positivity to what can be such a negative industry. So they say South Florida, which is where our management company is, and I don't say this, but they say it's the sunny place for shady people. It's funny, but it's a crappy mindset to go into a field like property management and thinking and treating people like that. You know what I mean? So when you started building your company in 2015, what did it look like early on? Like, what's the most glaring difference between then and now? And what was some of the biggest struggles in the beginning?
It's interesting the way we started, because we wanted to start with ethics is, a lot of times if you have folks that are in a business and they split, they try to take all the clients and customers and do all of those sort of things. And we did none of that. We actually left our other firm, took a hiatus for a few weeks, relaxed, and then decided to get after launching our own. I think the hardest thing was in the beginning being patient, right?
Oh, yeah.
I would go out and meet with every realtor and broker that I could possibly find and anybody else that would talk to me in trying to generate business. And my wife stayed back at the office, which didn't have an influx of people coming into the phone ringing. It was the first few months that were, because our previous outfit was very successful, we were used to winning all the time. And then we went to, how many calls did you take today? And you're like, well, 2, and one was a telemarketer. Made it pretty tough. So it was really hard for us to be patient in the beginning. And then the difference is now is it's crazy. Our phone never stops ringing. There's 16 of us.
Wow.
We have a few remote team members that we've picked up through Virtually Incredible. So we've got someone that works out of South Africa for us, 2 in the Philippines. So it's, we feel like we have this big, massive global footprint, right? So it's just so many moving parts. And then one big thing that's changed in the last 10 years for us is just the opportunity to leverage technology. 10 years ago, we didn't have a showing calendar. I had to build some janky kind of thing out of Google Calendar and a generic website form to make it all work, and it was broken probably more often than not. Now we can just pay for and lean on providers to help us gather speed, and your onboarding is 45 minutes, and if something's wrong you just text them or email them. That's a kind of a neat change in our industry over 10 years. That there's so many different software partners and other partners such as like Virtually Incredible for staffing and things like that. So we're able to outsource things very quickly, and 10 years ago we just pretty much had to do it all ourselves nonstop.
So you start from complete scratch, right? You don't have any doors when you start.
0.
Okay. And now how many do you have?
998 as of this morning.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. When do you feel like you started to really pick up traction? Like you were like, holy crap, we're seeing doors regularly add on. It's not like crickets.
It was just about 2 years, I would say, and then we just started getting stomped. We were signing up 10 a month, just religiously. So, it became kind of a snowball down the hill, right? Buy a computer, get a desk, get a phone, hire somebody. Cool, we're good. No, do that again. Again. At one point, it's funny how quickly my wife was reacting in the business, because at one point I was like, I think we got to hire somebody. And she's like, okay. And then I come in and there's 4 brand new desks. The furniture has already been there and dropped. And I'm like, why 4? And she's like, well, it's going, I don't want to stop and do it again in a month or 2. We're just going to have to hustle. So
you guys sound like an amazing team.
My wife's the absolute best. Yeah.
She sounds like it. Wow. When we last spoke, you said you guys had just gone to the Philippines and went scuba diving, right? Yeah. So it sounds like you guys know how to have fun too.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. And we went to the Philippines in December. We were there for, I think, 21 days or so. Had an amazing time. Got to connect with 2 of our, we call them away team instead of remote team members, but 2 of our away teams and their families, and spent a whole day with them there. That was super awesome. And then we were just in the Caymans for 18 days doing some scuba diving there. So we've got a few of the right people in the right places, so we can now scoot out and not be here all day, every day.
Okay, at what point in the business, when you were starting to pick up traction, or have you always been good at finding time for yourself, but when did you feel like, okay, holy crap, if we don't get help, we're never going to see the sun again? Did you ever have a moment like that? Or did you feel like you were able to manage it throughout?
No, that has a real ebb and flow to it. At one point, we took on one portfolio owner that had 110 doors from another company that was really a mom and pop, no technology, handed us a box of stuff for 110 doors. It was absolutely, onboarding was a mess through and through, and then we got into the properties and they were a mess. We ultimately ended up cutting that owner loose because he just wasn't interested in getting the properties up to speed the way we would and providing the right kind of housing we want to provide.
With over 34 years of combined experience, what lessons only come with time as far as this industry goes?
I think after being in the business this long, you learn that, problems are job security. Sometimes I think our business can be a little tough because all it is problems, right? I was in the restaurant industry for a very long time, and sometimes people say, do you miss it? And I say, I do. And they'd say, why? And I'd say, because you know what everybody wants? They want good, hot food fast, economically. That's what everybody wants. So And in property management, you don't. One owner might be frustrated you bought too nice a faucet, and the next time you buy a nice faucet, but he got his tax bill and he's like, why'd you buy the best faucet you could? I think that problems equal money in our industry because that gives us the ability to handle them, which is job security, and solve them. It takes a long time before I think I fully realize that otherwise you just feel like it's a nagging thing all the time, but you have to learn to welcome that. I think someone could tell you that, but until you've been really exposed to it for a long period of time, it probably won't set in. Now I kind of feel like an old wise owl, when I see something, I'm like, well, probably nobody will die, so we're okay. It's a problem, we're going to sort it out, it'll get fixed, nobody's going to die, it's going to be all right. I think time teaches you that. And property management's tough. I think anybody entering a space that we're in needs to like solving other people's problems, right? You need to welcome that and like that kind of chaos.
Yeah, and not become the victim of it, because it's so easy to feel victimized by this job. And I think that lesson comes with time, but some people never learn it. You have to have a certain demeanor that you definitely have, and it's rare. And I struggle. I'm not in the day-to-day of the front line. I call it frontline property management anymore. I found myself feeling like I did get closer to, like my husband always said, do you think a garbage man goes, every time he sees the garbage cans on the street when he looks down? You have to own it. Your job is to solve problems. I'm like, I don't want the job in solving problems. But it's amazing because when you're good at it and you don't victimize yourself, you're right. It is like, that's what keeps the lights on. That's why you have a job, is because you're good at solving problems and nobody's dying. So it's going to be okay. So
one thing that I throw on that too, that I think after doing this long, that really comes to light too, is property management is so protected. If you do it and you do it well, hurricane, I guess if we had a bad enough event that wiped all the properties off the map in our county, we'd be in real trouble, right? Our business could evaporate, but the likelihood of that's probably zero. Not much changes our industry, right? COVID didn't really affect us. We were able to produce the same results and the same earning during that time as where 10,000 different kinds of businesses collapsed. Others are still collapsing because they used all their finances and funds to make it through. So I love that it's very consistent. A good friend of mine that's a real estate broker in our community that lives a lot of property is always picking on me. He's like, why don't you just sell property? It'd be easier. I said, because man, I don't have the highs and the lows, man. There's times you're like asking me if any of my owners want to sell. I don't have to do that. We just take care of people and take care of their problems, and the results are always here for us. And you have months where you're super excited and you're so busy you can't leave. And you have other months where you're not sure how you're going to cover payroll. And, it's like all over the place for you. And our business is just so incredibly consistent if you're decent at what you do. And I absolutely love that. It's just predictable.
We call it, when we sell a property, killing the goose that lays the golden egg. It's a nice payday, but it is such a good, sustainable business. Ours has gone through the crash, COVID. We started it in 85. I wasn't there, but my dad and grandpa started it, and it's survived so many highs and lows with family, so many highs and lows with the economy, so many natural disasters. It's 100%. And COVID taught us how valuable it is to be in a sustainable industry. Or not sustainable, but essential, because living is essential. How do you build trust with new clients? What do you feel like you do differently than your competitors?
We have processes built in and checklists. I know a lot of property managers offer guarantees and those sort of things to kind of set the stage, and we don't. But we have kind of a built-in system if things aren't going well in the beginning to take care of them so that they know we're paying attention. As an example, I've got an owner who's got a really twisted mortgage and it's too high and she really needs to get a particular rent. And we've had trouble finding good tenants at that rent. And so as we've gone through, one of the things we've done is she's hit just about the 70-day mark as far as being listed. We called and said, it's time for you to drop your rent, but we're going to take some skin in the game too. And we're going to drop our lease fee on this property because, you're not doing so well. And she's like, wait, what? I'm totally shocked. That really sets the stage that she knows we're absolutely paying attention. And we make a lot of those kind of calls that say, hey, I know you said you wanted to leave your rent at, $2,300 a month. It's been 10 days. I'm getting nervous. I need you to know I'm paying attention and I'm nervous over here for you. And I think we need to do something different. Although I'm happy to be patient with you, because the more you make, the more I make, right? But at the same time, I don't want you to think we're out, bobber fishing.
Yeah.
We're on the side of the bank drinking the beer and just waiting patiently until the universe works it out for us. That's not the style of company we are. Those conversations and the business in the beginning of the relationship really seemed to catch them a little sideways, because I think most people aren't proactive in their business, they're reactive.
Yep.
So we try to do as many things in front as we can. Some of those we've used some processing software like Lead Simple to build those out to handle automatically for us, so they are on time and they are consistent across the board. But being really proactive, I think, makes a big difference. And our clients, it's weird. Everybody's moving to AI and they just emails and text, and our clients, they want to hear from us. It's interesting. Julian was talking to a client yesterday about some things with a pool and some insurance. And the client lives in Mexico and is like, hey, we've talked to you about coming down here and you keep saying, yeah, and you never keep scheduling it. When are you going to schedule it? Because we're on the phone and we're connecting with them instead of just texting.
Wow.
They want us to go spend a week with them in Cabo.
That's freaking awesome.
So I think just really being proactive is a really good thing to do. And then just remembering that what we do is incredibly important. Act like it, be in a hurry, catch them fast.
First off, so it's not only that you put skin in the game, but you're not waiting till they call you going, what the heck? You're calling them and saying, hey, this isn't cool. We got to change something up. This is not going to work. And not only is it not going to work, but we know that it's affecting your bottom line, so we'll take the little hit too. And it's so rare. You're 100% right. Most people are reactive, number one, and passing the buck, number two. And it's not your guys' fault that the market's not, allowing for the rent that equals her mortgage. Most management companies would say, hey, that's not really our problem. Here's the hard truth, But caring about people and going the extra mile goes further than that. So that's really cool. What should property owners look for when they're trying to find a management company? And what are some red flags they should look out for?
I think they should be really looking to see if their promises look like they're being kept, right? I mean, if you say you have world-class systems, looking at their website, you should be able to see it if they do, right? One of my competitors spends a lot of time talking about how amazing they are, but you have to call their office to schedule an appointment, and their hours are very strange. They're closed for lunch, and they make the processes very difficult, not easier and smooth to get results. I think that's one thing I would look for, is that they have systems in place and are reducing all the bottlenecks they can for the clients they serve, not only the property owners, but the residents as well. Second to that they are really involved. In our space locally here, there's a lot of property managers where maybe the broker's not on site. Maybe it's all being done by a sales agent, maybe not even that. And I think you probably want to be in a business relationship with somebody who owns a business who's in the business, right?
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the most powerful things you can do, is try to see if you can connect with the people at the top. It's funny, in my last business, sometimes property owners would call in and one of my business partners would be unwilling to take it. And he'd say something like, because he's old, the guy that owns GM, well, he talked to the guys that buying cars. And I'm like, well, if he was smart, he would. You learn the most amount of things by talking to your clients, what their needs are, what they want, what they're willing to pay, how to pivot your business. If you're never talking to the clients, you're never finding out what they need. So I think in any business that I'm trying to do business with, I want to see that the owner of the business is, one, keeping their promises, that appears true. I always hate it when I see, we offer elite service, and then you go look at their Google reviews and it's like 2.1. Large mismatch between what you're saying and the results you're getting. And then the owners are in it,
Yeah, that's such a refreshing take, because there are so many owners that think they're above talking to their clients. And that gap is, I think, what keeps systems in place and poor business practices in place, because they're so out of touch from how it's hurting their customers, and if that's all they care about, their bottom line. And crazy to me too, especially when the leasing market's not super hot, but anytime when you're not able to schedule showings online and you only answer the calls 9 to 5 for leasing properties, when someone's looking to lease a property and you call them back, even if it's 10 minutes later, they probably don't know what property you're calling about, because they're calling every person. You know what I mean? There's not a way to book a showing and lock something in the first time you look at it. There's a good chance you're going to lose them. And that's a pretty big part of our job as property managers, is to lease properties quickly. So mind-blowing.
It's interesting that you said that. It's funny, in our showing software, we can actually track when showings are booked, and the most amount of showings are booked after 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Which means people are living their whole lives. I guess, I don't know, they're trying to do dinner and homework, and then they're sit down and they're like, I guess I got to find a property. That's when it's getting started, which is amazing. If you're not around but 9 to 5 and close for lunch, that's a pretty tough one to get connected and get them the service they need. So you got to figure out a different way. Well, you were talking earlier, I was kind of thinking about Elon Musk, extravagant guy building cars for, what's now the biggest electric car company, but he's sleeping on the factory floor. So you can be the sort of owner who says, I'm above that, or you can be the owner that says, I don't know, I got to sleep on the floor to find out what I need to know.
Yeah.
It's just your mindset.
Yeah, I know who I'd rather list my property with. Just saying, I know who I would. It's a huge difference. and for such a big asset, and for an opportunity for someone to either really, really take something that can be super stressful for you and cover all of it, or just create so many nightmares in your life if they're not doing it. That's the two things you're looking at. Rarely is it somewhere in between.
Yeah, it does seem to be all left or all right.
It does, yeah.
Talking about this yesterday, like, why is every Google review we get a 1 or a 5? Did Google take away 2, 3, and 4? Or are they gone?
Yeah.
It loves you or they hate you.
Yes. And they'll also usually do that out of desperation because they can't get a hold of anyone to tell them they hate them to their face and talk it over. But that's something else. But I will say, in property management, I forgive. Like, it is hard to not get bad reviews if you're doing a good job by the owner, in my opinion. It's hard to not get some. What's a costly mistake property owners often make?
I think reacting too slow.
Yeah.
I think if we list a property just as an example for one problem and you don't get after it and make a change within, say, 10 days, right, you're going to either have such a vacancy gap, that's going to create the problem. And the second part of that, though, is property owners sometimes are always looking on a monthly basis and not a yearly basis. Right. So there's times I'll tell a property owner, like, okay, we're really shooting for this extra $100, but we're leaving it empty a month and a half up front. If we divide that over 12 months and look at it in the first year, we didn't really rent it at $2,000 a month. We actually rented it at $1,625, which is a super bummer. I think you need to look at it a little differently. Let's look at it on a yearly basis instead of a monthly, so we can look at more of results than trends. I think that's one. And then the same thing goes for repairs too. I see a lot of owners when I'm like, hey, it's time to change the roof. And they're like, oh, I'm going to have to push it off a year or two. And I'm like, okay. And then, they're like, hey, I'm ready. And then I'm like, okay, I'll get the roofer to update the bid. And it comes back $1,900 more. And they're like, what happened? I'm like, well, oil prices went up, roofing prices went up, minimum wage went up 3 times, their insurance went up 4 times. So yeah, now it's another $2,000. And there was respectively probably no reason to wait. So I think it's just waiting. It's not being reactive quickly enough.
Yeah.
It's also the death of a business owner too, right? Aside of just property owners, but you have to figure out what's needed and get it done in a reasonable amount of time at a good cost.
I think that's something too that's not just common knowledge, even though once you explain it, it's common knowledge to you and me because we're property managers, but so many people go in, they don't expect to ever be an investor. We call them accidental landlords. They have no idea what they're doing and they're just trying to cover their monthly bills and they're just so nearsighted when it comes to that. I think it's actually one of the biggest benefits that you can have, hiring a good property manager to educate you on looking at it annually and seeing how much it's costing you. And then also looking at, hey, by the way, it's cool if you want to wait up 2 years on the roof, but here's some things that could happen in the meantime that you may not be thinking about that might cost you a little bit more than this bid. And I think that is something very valuable in hiring a good management company that can educate you on that stuff.
And also reducing it to the day if you have to. I think, sometimes we'll tell an owner, if they're trying to get, say, $3,200, and I'm like, okay, but if we rented at $3,000 and I rent it now, you'd stop bleeding $100 every day. Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, let's take the rent, divide that by 30, then we're going to get the daily. That doesn't even include what we're paying the landscaper and the power's on and the city trash cans. So it's probably really like $125 a day every day that ticks by. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, probably should do something different. I think it's just not reacting fast enough. And good property managers should be able to explain to them the net effect of what's really happening, not their emotional effect when they sit down on the 30th to do their bills for the month.
Yep. To explain it to them, well, I guess exactly what you said beforehand, because if you're not educating someone, like say you do a rental analysis, you say, hey, it's going to rent for $3,000. I'm very confident I can get it rented in X amount of time for $3,000. They say, well, can we try for $3,200? And you start by saying, you're losing this much money every day we do that, instead of waiting for 30 days to then say, this is how much you've lost. And if they don't listen to you, they don't listen to you, which unfortunately that happens too. But that education piece, proactive education piece, is very valuable. I think there's a way that I can even just tell from talking to you, it's a special skill set to deliver that in a way that's not like where you don't get frustrated. It's no skin off my back. I'm just letting you know, buddy.
We actually have a saying around here, if you like it, we love it, as long as it's legal.
I love that. That is awesome. We gotta call this whole episode that. Where can somebody go to find you if they want to either call to ask more about your management services or just to visit your website?
Feel free to stop by and visit one of our 2 receptionists up front at 2663 Victor Avenue in Redding, California. Feel free to jump on our website. Feel free to give us a call, 530-410-6085 personally. Send a postcard any way you want. We'll take connections any way they come. Facebook Messenger, that's fine too.
It's just awesome when we talk to a business owner in the property management space where they just honestly have such a upbeat and such a positive outlook on it. It's so refreshing. And honestly, your owners and your tenants are lucky and your area is blessed to have you. So it was really nice speaking to you and hearing all of that. And I also loved hearing that you went and saw your away team. That really warmed my heart. That's so cool. Thank you so much. You take care. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have an amazing day.
You too.